It feels like we always have something to worry about with recession, inflation, and tariffs. We all feel that things are getting more and more expensive, but just how expensive are things getting? Well, we dug through the numbers. The first thing you need to know is that in 2022, the average American household had monthly expenses of $6,081. Fast forward to today, and the average monthly expenses are $6,440, which comes to an extra $4,300 a year. And that's just in 3 years. If we go back even further to 2019, it's over $5,000. So let's go category by category to see where the biggest expenses are coming from and what we can do to survive. Housing and rent are where things have gotten the most expensive, costing an extra $3,500 per year, jumping from $12,000 a year in 2019 to $15,500 in 2024. If you rented at any point in the last few years, you probably already know this. I mean, in 2019, rent was $1,000 a month on average. And in 2024, it hopped up to $1,300 for a 30% increase. And the reason for the jump? Well, one of the biggest reasons is inflation, which saw record numbers that have not been seen in over 100 years. The official definition of inflation is the rate of increase in prices over a given period of time. So when inflation is high, each dollar you have buys a little less than it did before. But it's not just inflation that caused rent to go up, because over the last decade, rent has outpaced currency inflation by about 40%. A lot of the surge in rent is because buying a home has become too expensive, and the demand for renting has gone up. However, you should know that the worst of rent spikes may be over for now. In fact, the median rent in big cities was slightly lower in 2025 compared to 2024. Now, if you're a homeowner or want to become one, inflation and recession fears play a role here too. The official definition of a recession is that the national GDP decreases over 2 consecutive quarters. But if you're not a finance expert, it means a big economic slowdown. The Federal Reserve has raised interest rates over the last few years to fight inflation, which pushed mortgage rates up. In 2020, you could get a 30-year mortgage at around 3%. But in 2025, it's more like 6 to 7%. And for a $300,000 mortgage, when we compare a 3% and a 7% interest rate, it would be an extra 58% added to your mortgage, or $700 a month. So if you're in the market for houses today, that house will be an extra $8,000 a year compared to what it was 5 years ago. And that's why so many of us are in this weird position where it feels like we'll never own a home. For now, tariffs haven't made a big impact yet, but if they last, they could have the biggest impact on the housing market. A lot of the materials and appliances that go in a house are imported, and if it costs more to make a house and people can't buy it, home builders could scale back production and disrupt the supply. But we need to focus on how to survive an economy with all-time high housing costs. If you're renting an apartment, the good news is that rent is holding steady, and it could stay that way for a while. Lots of new complexes are being built, which increases the rental supply and should, in theory, prevent rent spikes. But if your rent does go up, you should probably look to downsize, move further away from those bigger cities, or get a roommate and cut your costs in half. If you own a home with a fixed low interest rate, congrats! You're in a good spot and safe from the high interest rates and home prices. And hopefully you don't have to move anytime soon. And if you're house hunting, I'm not gonna lie, it's tough out there right now. Lots of sellers want to sell their homes for more than what buyers can afford. And a big reason people can't afford them is because of the high interest rates. So lots of homes are just wasting away on Zillow with constant price reductions and no offers. We also have a video for first-time homebuyer mistakes, which might help you, so check it out if you're house hunting. But for now, just keep saving for a down payment and work on your credit score so you can get the lowest possible interest rate when you find the right house. If your credit score is lower than you want, here's a video on how to raise your credit score 100 points, and subscribe to this YouTube channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos where we'll do financial audits for your age group. And while housing might be the main reason for your expenses going up, the part of your budget that probably feels the most expensive is the cost of living. I'm talking about your groceries, gas, utility bills, and your everyday expenses. In 2019, these all cost a total of $14,318. 2019 a year. Fast forward to 2024, and that's $17,000, nearly $3,000 more per year. Add that to housing, and we're already over $5,000 a year. Let's start with groceries. If it feels like your receipt totals have gotten bigger and your bag's lighter, it's true. Overall, grocery prices are about 31% higher than pre-pandemic times. Tariffs are impacting everyone in 2024, and as most of you know by now, tariff literally means import tax. And I was shocked when I learned how much food the US is importing. In 2024, the US imported roughly $216 billion worth of food. So a small percent increase in tariffs could add billions in expenses. Another expense, making it harder to survive, comes from transportation. Since 2019, overall transportation costs, which include your car payment and gas, are up an extra $2,500 a year. That means housing, food, and transportation costs are up $7,500 in total. In addition to groceries and gas, we've also seen more expensive entertainment and healthcare. In 2019, healthcare was $5,200, while today it's $5,850. So an extra $600 a year is getting taken out of your paycheck to cover your health insurance. Even categories like entertainment jumped from $3,000 to $3,500 per year. Everywhere we look, we are seeing massive increases compared to 2019, which is why it feels like prices are getting out of control. And while you can't single-handedly stop inflation or remove tariffs on your own, you can tweak your habits to make it easier to survive. Little things add up, and because your biggest expenses come from food and transportation, this is where you should look to cut costs. For groceries, you don't have to survive on ramen like most of us have done at some point, but you can do things like plan meals in advance and swap in cheaper alternatives. For example, if beef is too expensive, maybe more chicken or beans in your diet until prices ease. You could also buy in bulk for non-perishables and freeze portions, because unit prices are often lower this way. Use apps or loyalty programs for coupons or deals. It might feel old school, but a few dollars saved each trip is gas money for the week. And for transportation, the most realistic way to survive would be refinancing or considering a trade-in for a cheaper car. We have a full video on this to explain more. The job market in 2025 is a bit of a mixed bag. Job openings have remained steady with 7.2 million openings as of August 2025, which is down quite a bit from pandemic highs of 12.1 million. But in 2019, we also had around 7 million openings, so this number has more or less stayed the same over 5 years. However, what feels different now compared to back then is that with higher interest rates and wary customers, businesses could anticipate people might spend less, which could open the door to scaling back on labor costs. But how does this affect you? Well, even if you personally haven't lost your job, you probably know someone who did. Things have shifted from the workers' market we had to a more uncertain environment. This also means that you or people you know could be less confident about asking for a raise or switching jobs, fearing that a potential recession could make things worse. Now, it's not doom and gloom everywhere. There are still industries adding jobs. Healthcare and hospitality, for example, have been fairly strong, but overall, the possibility of a recession has everyone on their toes. Economists in early 2025 were somewhat divided. Some say we might avoid a big recession, while others say one could be around the corner by the end of 2025. Only time will tell. The best time to prepare for a layoff or downturn is before it happens. Even if your job feels secure, it's wise to have a plan that will help you survive. First, if you don't have an emergency fund, try to build one that covers 3 to 6 months of your average expenses. We know that's easier said than done with high costs, but start with the goal of 1 month's expenses saved, then 2, and so on. Second, keep your resume and LinkedIn updated. In a brisk job market, maybe you don't bother updating your resume for years. Now it's smart to have it ready to go. Third, consider upskilling or diversifying your skills. If you're in retail management, maybe pick up some digital marketing knowledge or data analysis skills that can transfer to other roles. If you're in tech, learning new programming languages or brushing up on AI tools could make you more marketable. Basically, make yourself as adaptable as possible. And if the worst happens and you do get laid off, remember that you should apply for unemployment benefits right away. That's what they're there for, so take advantage. The job market isn't collapsing by any means, but it's shifted from an easy mode to something a bit more challenging. And if you're like me, you're probably wondering how you would handle your debt if times were tough. Whether it's a credit card, a car loan, student loans, or basically any form of debt, you've probably wondered what you could do with this debt if you lost your job. Let's talk credit cards first. A lot of Americans rely on credit cards to buy groceries, pay for gas, or cover emergencies when money is tight. The problem is that more and more people are starting to carry a balance. And to make it worse, credit card interest rates have skyrocketed from 15 to 17% a few years ago to over 20% as of early 2025, the highest on record. High inflation led many people to use credit just to stay afloat, and now they're stuck with high interest debt, so it's basically a double whammy. By the way, we did publish a video on the best ways to pay off credit card debt without extra money, so definitely give it a watch after this one if you're in this boat. And then there's student loans, which is all over the news lately. Honestly, we could do a whole video on student loans right now, but the TLDR is that student loans were paused in 2020, and now that payments have started again, there is a massive student loan problem. According to the Department of Education, only 38% of borrowers are in repayment and current on their student loans, and nearly 5 million borrowers have not made a monthly payment in the last year. So for everyone behind on their payments in 2025, student loans are starting to get sent to collections. Plus, the average student loan payment is $450, so that's a lot of money that is no longer in the budget for 5 million people. To survive a debt problem these days, start by making a plan to tackle your high-interest debt like credit cards. It might sound obvious, but when rates were lower, carrying some balance wasn't as bad. Now, it's urgent to prioritize. Focus on paying down the highest interest debt first. It might help to transfer a balance to a card with a 0% introductory offer if you can. Another strategy is to look into a debt consolidation loan or a personal loan. A loan helps you avoid depleting your savings account, so you can keep cash on hand and potentially get a lower interest rate compared to your credit card. But we get it. Stuff happens. We all have financial emergencies like unexpected health expenses, or your house floods, or your car breaks down. CreditNinja offers personal emergency loans fast to people who don't have the best credit. You can learn more about how they've helped their customers and hear from real people in this video, so head on over to CreditNinja.com or the link in the description to apply. If you have student loans and you're struggling, look into income-driven repayment plans or any forgiveness program you might qualify for. The government has plans that you can cap your payment based on income, and that could provide relief if a recession cuts your income or if inflation has already squeezed your budget. Finally, on the flip side of high rates, if you're able to save money, take advantage of higher interest on savings accounts. It's not exactly debt coping, but it's a silver lining. Many online savings accounts now pay around 4% interest, which is the highest in years. That won't make you rich, but it can help your emergency fund grow a bit faster and at least keep up with inflation. Okay, so now you know how to survive in an uncertain and more expensive economy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.